Hey everybody, I'm Ray. It's good to see you all back. Today we're still working on the small block Chevy build. We're going to assemble our rods and pistons together, and we're going to get right into it. So I'm using MAP gas. Well, I've used propane in the past. MAP gas seems to work a little bit faster. It gets a little warmer, a little quicker. All we're wanting to do is just heat this rod up until we get a blue color in the small end of it here. So we're going to go ahead and warm this up. It's a cold, rainy day here in northern Michigan today. Getting that fall weather coming in very, very quickly. So what we're trying to do is heat this up real even. Well, you see I'll turn it. I got an F on the one side of my rod here, as you can see, and that is actually what has to face forward. I'll explain that to you here in a couple of minutes once we get this in place. You can see the rod's changing color pretty nice. Realistically, you only have just a few seconds to do this, so we want to make sure we got everything ready to go here. I'll pull my rod pin back just a touch. We'll take this and we'll set it in there. There we go. Okay, just like that. Okay, I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer here so you can see what we got going on. Tip the camera just a little bit. Okay, as you can see, it was a quick process. Our F is faced, this is our little notch right here, and that goes forward in our engine. So what I did is I put a little mark right here, and I put an F on here. Now what that does is this, the chamfer that we have, actually it's right here, and we got a little chamfer there. Now that right there is a bigger side of the chamfer. If you look at your rod, you'll have a chamfered edge here and a chamfered edge here. Normally there's one side that's got a larger chamfer than the other, and that side goes out of your crankshaft journal. You got two rods that go side by side. You'll have the inner part and you have the outer parts, and that bigger chamfer goes to the outer parts of your chamfer. So, and that's why we do it, because this here is number 6, so it will go on the other side, where when it comes in, this side here will have the bigger chamfer on it, and then this side here goes forward. So I hope that makes sense to y'all. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to let this cool down. We're going to do all the rest of them, and we'll be back in a few seconds. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to put our rod bearings on. The rods, I'll get this set up where you can see what we got going on here. Here's our rod bearing. It's just little half moon rod bearing there, and it's got this little tang right here that you can see. Now what that does is that matches up with the little tang notch right there in the rod. So we're going to go ahead and put that together. Put this one in here. Now you put these on dry, guys. Don't lubricate this portion. This just kind of pushes in like that. So you're flush with the tops like that. And then the cap also gets one, whoop, just like this. There's the little groove there. That tang goes in that groove. You just kind of push it in just like that. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and check for our clearances like we did on the main bearings. We're going to do the same thing on our rod bearings. So I'm going to squirt just a light little bit of WD-40 there and here. Just gonna make sure that's all in there. Okay. Also, what I've done is I've oiled our cylinders a little bit. Now you see I'm doing this without putting the rings on. So there's no rings on here yet. This goes forward. This is our notch. This is number 1. So I'll see if I can get the camera to follow us over here to our engine block. Bear with me, guys. It's still on the tripod. Teresa's busy today, so she can't help me out here. Try to get this centered a little bit better. There we go. Okay, I already have my number 1 here straight up and my crank down here is centered. So as you notice, I put these on. These are nothing more than just some old pieces of tubing that I put over the bolts to protect my crank. So we're going to go ahead and slide this in there like this. I'll catch it from the bottom. Okay, there it is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my engine just a little bit so I can show you what we're doing here a little easier. See if that'll do it. So, well, yeah, kinda. I'm going to pull those little protectors off there. Now, like I was showing you, they got these little tangs. We want to line those tangs up. Those tangs go together on the top part of the rod in this rod cap. You want to make sure those go together. But first of all, what we got to do, I guess I'm going to have to roll this a little bit further so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. See if I can move the block a little bit here and maybe lower the camera down a little bit. Position it over here. Whoop. Sorry guys. Position it a little bit more like that. Okay. So now you can see that this is our rod sitting right here. Right there's our little tong. So we'll make sure that when we put this on here, that this goes down like that. But first of all, what we want to do is take our little bit of plastic gauge here. I got another little piece right here on my finger. I'm going to set that right there. Hopefully the camera will pick that up. And then with our little tab down, we're going to put that right on there like that. Okay. I'm supporting the piston from the other side with my hands so I don't push it back out of there. And what we're going to do is we're going to tighten these down. Torque them. Okay. Now 45 foot-pounds is what they require on the rod bearings. So there we go, there's our 45. There's our 45. Make sure we're there. Double check this one. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take that loose. Okay, so we can tap this off there. There we go. Alright, it's kind of hard to see our mark, but we check it the same way as we did with the rod bearings, or the main bearings. And it looks like we have 0.02 between 1.5. Well, I don't know. Looks like more like 1.5 there. If you can see that, I don't know if the camera's picking that up or not. Right there, about 1.5. So we're good with our clearances on this one. What we'll do is we'll do all the rest of them, so all 8 of them are done, and then we'll come back and put our rings on. Clean up our crank here. We'll come back and put our rings on, and then we'll start putting all of our pistons and rod assemblies together. So I'm going to go ahead and put these back on, just like that, and I'm going to push it back out. Okay, and here we go. There's our piston. So we're going to go ahead and do the other 7. We're going to check our clearances, and we'll be back in a few seconds, and we'll be showing you how to put our rings on and installing our pistons with rings. So hang in there, we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We got the rods all taken care of in the mains, or the rod bearings taken care of, and we got them all checked over with our plasma or plasta gauge. They all turned out really well. We're anywhere between 1.5 to 2 thousandths. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our number 1 piston again, the same one that I showed you earlier, putting into the block, and we're going to start putting our rings on it. Now what I do is I like to start at the bottom of my piston and put the bottom rings in first. When you get your box of pistons, they come in a box like this, and normally they come in little packets. Now as you can see, this one right here says top groove right on it. Number 1 top groove. So this one here then says second groove, packet number 2. And then this here is packet number 3, third groove, and this one here is our oil ring. As you can see, it's kind of real goofy looking. Okay, now that I have this here, I want to point something out. With the way it's shaped, you got these little wiggles in it. And if I spread that apart just a little bit, you can see how this wiggle goes up and that wiggle there goes up, and when they come together they go like that. Now when we install these, we want those pointed up like this. We don't want them pointed down. We want those pointed up just like that. So that is part of our third groove. This one also says third groove, packet number 3. So these rings here go with that ring there. We got these 2 real thin, as you can see, this is packet 3, third groove. We got these 2 little grooves, or these 2 little rings here, and they go with that. One goes on the top portion of it, one goes on the bottom portion of it. Okay, now something else you want to pay attention to is the rings themselves. Now this is our top groove ring, and there is no dot anywhere on this side, nor is there any dot on this side. Okay, not always will they have dots. Sometimes they'll actually have top etched into it, or they'll have a laser etched oval, or in this case they'll have nothing at all. And rule of thumb is if they have nothing at all on them, it don't matter whether they go this way or this way. They can go either way, because normally what happens is all 4 corners are squared off. It doesn't matter. So that being said, we'll look at our number 2 ring groove, and I took a little bit of oil and wiped on it. Hopefully it'll see it. There's a little dot right there in the ring. There's nothing here, there's nothing here, and there's nothing here. So that tells me that this little dot goes up. So this ring sits like this in our second groove. Also, if you look inside here and the shape of it, you'll see there's a little bevel right there. So that bevel also tells us that it should go a certain way. So there you go. That there is our top. So pay attention to that when you go to put them together. Okay, so like I said, I like to start on the bottom of my piston. So I'm going to take, this is my number 1 piston. So as it sits in number 1, this goes forward. This is the top part of my engine right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this oil ring first, and I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to spiral this around. Now the oil rings I do spiral. My compression rings, my top and bottom rings, I do not spiral. So there that is. Like I said, those 2 little things point up. I'm just going to push it together ever so slightly. I'm going to take this one here. I'm going to go approximately an inch, inch and a half over this way, and I'm going to make that where my gap is. So this one here will then spiral on this way. Now take your time doing this, guys. We don't want to scratch our piston all up with the ring ends, and we don't want to break a ring. So take your time. And I'm going to take this one, I'm going to start it over here. I'm going to spiral it the other direction. And be careful that you don't bend these little rings. They're pretty strong, but they're thin and they can be bent real easy. Okay, so I need to move this one along just a little bit. Alright, so that puts my spring corrugated style one right here directly on top of my piston. Puts one gap here and one gap here. As you can see, I got a gap here, here, and here. Now what I'm going to do when I put on my second groove, I'm going to put that one over here, and I'll put my first groove over here, so we're not stacking any of our grooves up. So I'm going to get our number 2, make sure the dot is up. I'm going to use my ring compressor, or expander, excuse me, ring expander. Oop. I'm going to set that in place very carefully. And I'm fighting it a little bit here. Why am I fighting it? There we go. There we go. Okay. So, like I said, this one here will be down like that. When we compress it, when we use our compressor, we're going to compress it just like that. So then I'll take this one here and we'll put it on this side. Come on. As you can see, even with the right tools, sometimes they fight you a little bit. There we go. Okay, put this back on. So there you have it. There's our rings. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put all of our rings on all of our pistons. So when we get ready to put them in, we're ready to put in, we can just install them all at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and set this one off to the side. We're going to go ahead and put all the rest of our rings on our pistons, and I'll probably set them right back in the box where they're at right now. And we will start with our number one, and we'll start putting it in. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rings on the rest of them, and we'll see you in a few seconds. Okay, we're going to get ready to put our pistons in. We got our rings, whatnot, all assembled here, and we're going to coordinate our index, our rings, so we're not lining up all of our grooves. And that looks pretty good right there. Now we're going to put our compressor on. It's an old school compressor, but it still works good, fellas. It's slower than a lot of them, but it still works good, does a nice job. I'm happy with it. So I continue to use it. Like I say, I don't build engines for a living, so I'm not a professional engine builder. I have some old school tools and they seem to work good, so I just continue using them. Because when I put an engine together, time really isn't an issue. So I'm going to go ahead and put some lube on our bearings. I've already oiled up our cylinders, so we should be in good shape. See if I can get this over here where you can see again. Tip down on our engine. There. And our number one. Just like that. And our little notch is forward. Real gently tap that in there. Oh, I lost one of my little guards. I put that back on. The rod bolt. Okay. Now if you're pushing that down and it stops, could be that your rings are hanging a little bit. So as long as it keeps moving, we're good to go. Which it's moving very, very slowly, but it's moving. Because you certainly don't want to break a ring. Okay, let's check that real quick. Tip just a little bit. There we go. Alright. We're good to continue on. Alright. And there is our first piston. Go ahead and continue pushing that down in the bore. Okay, we are on our crank. I'll remove these. And I'm going to spin the motor a little bit so you can see what we got going on in the bottom. Okay, and here is our main, or our rods. So what I'm going to do is line up, make sure the tabs go together. So push that down like that. Start our two nuts. We'll go ahead and torque them down. These get torqued to 45 foot-pounds. We're going to do it in stages, where we won't take it completely to the 45. We'll take it down and we'll bring it up to 45, which okay, here we are. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of them, and we're going to call the end of our video now. So if you would go ahead and subscribe to our channel if you like what we're doing, leave some comments, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.